going to a character flaw of you're lazy, you're talking about being vague and not really addressing anything. Oh, or you're just lazy. Oh, you're just not a good worker.
Yeah, I think the first step, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, is a self-check. The leader's got to stop and say, okay, I need to answer some questions here first. What standard was missed? Did I make that standard clear? What specific behavior or outcome is the problem? What support have I offered this person to improve? What's the appropriate next step if nothing changes? If I can't answer those questions, I probably need to spend more time preparing for the conversation.
I think that is really, really important, because to just go in there and trying to address a single issue instead of trying to get back to, like you said, where was the standard missed? And did I, as a leader at organization, make that standard extremely clear? Or am I trying to impose an unwritten work ethic on someone? If you weren't clear about the standard, it's very difficult to hold someone to it. I can't expect my child to take out the trash every day if I didn't make it clear that that was one of their responsibilities. And if you can't answer those, 100% agree, you need to spend time on the front end, making it extremely clear in your own mind how you're going to answer those in the conversation. They all should probably be answered in the conversation. Even if you haven't had to address it before, maybe the answer isn't, well, what have I done to help you? But how am I going to help you going forward?
Yeah, absolutely.
Those questions seem useful because it keeps the leader from being vague and relying on some character flaw. Like those 5 questions seem to clearly address an issue, whereas going to a character flaw of you're lazy, you're talking about being vague and not really addressing anything. Oh, or you're just lazy. Oh, you're just not a good worker. Oh, you know, any of those things really, how is the low performer, underperformer supposed to leave that? They're like, well, what am I supposed to do next? Like, what am I to address so that when we follow up, I actually know what I'm going to be measured against?
Yeah. Vagueness is an enemy of accountability. When leaders are vague, they say things like, hey, you need to step up. You need to be more professional. You need to be a better team player. And that may be true, but that's not very clear. A person can't look at something and go, okay, this is exactly what I need to be doing. Somebody needs to know what is happening, what standards being missed, why it matters, what they need to do to change, to improve, to prevent that vagueness. I can give you 5 steps for holding people accountable. Step number 1, clarify or reset the standard. Your first move should be clarification. If the standard was not clear, the leader has to own that. Conversation might sound like, hey, I realize I've not been as clear as I should have been about what success looks like here. Let me reset the expectation. Then make that expectation concrete. Going forward, I need this report completed by noon every Friday with the data checked before it comes to me. If there's a barrier, I need to know by Thursday afternoon, not after the deadline. That is accountability before the fact. That's making it clear. This is what is expected.
That feels very different from coming in after the fact and saying, you're not doing what you need to. You keep disappointing me.
Yeah.
Like that sort of expectation of this is what I expect seems very clear. You didn't meet that.
Yeah, it is. It's very different. It gives the person a fair chance to meet the expectation. Again, that does not apply the same way to clear ethical or professional violations. Step 2, address the gap early. Once the standard is clear, the leader has to follow up. If the gap appears again, address it early. The conversation might sound like this. I want to talk with you about this gap between what we agreed to and what's happening. My goal is not to punish you. My goal is to get clear about what is getting in the way and help you meet the standard. Then be specific. We agreed that the report would be completed by noon on Friday. The last 2 weeks, it came in late. In both cases, that delayed other people's work. Then you can ask, help me understand what is getting in the way.
That question's really important because you're assuming you don't know everything that's going on. You don't know your blind spots. There may be something that's happening, some other thing that is impairing them to actually do it. And at least then you make them relook at it. Like, okay, why am I not meeting this? Is this an unreal standard that's set? Do I not believe in the standard? Do I not think it matters? You can really get some good input from the person getting the feedback of how they see the problem. And many times their proposed solution to it.
Yeah, I would say often there's something the leader doesn't know. And accountability does not require the leader assume the worst. There may be a workload issue, a training issue, a resource issue, personal issue, a fit issue, but you'll not know if you avoid the conversation. And here's where timing matters. When you see a problem, again, address it. Do not wait until you are furious. Do not wait until the team is resentful. Do not wait until the pattern is entrenched. Never walk by a problem. Step 3, coach toward the standard. If the gap continues, the next move is coaching. That might sound like this. We're still not consistently meeting the expectation. Let's work through what would help you meet it. This is where the leader may offer training, a checklist, clearer workflow, more frequent check-ins, mentorship, or a change in how the work is organized. But there's a line leaders have to watch. There's a difference between supporting and rescuing. Support means I help you meet the standard. Rescuing means I absorb the consequences when you do not. Support is leadership. Rescuing, when it continues too long, becomes avoidance with extra steps.
The work's got to go somewhere. And if you're absorbing it or you're putting band-aids over this, eventually it's becoming too much of a problem. So the leader should help the person succeed, but not carry the person's responsibilities indefinitely. That is not addressing the problem.
Right. A leader owns clarity, support, fairness, and follow through, but the person still owns whether they meet the standard. If someone's given the standard, coached toward it, provided reasonable support, told the consequences, and still cannot or will not get it done, that's not on the leader. That's on the person. Step 4, name the consequence. At some point, if that gap persists, you got to name what happens next. It doesn't have to be cruel, but it does have to be clear. For example, if we cannot get this to the needed level, we will need to consider whether this is the right role or arrangement for you. Or if this pattern continues, I will need to change how this responsibility is assigned. Another option might be, if we do not see sustained improvement, we will need to move into a more formal performance process. The key is that the person should not be surprised later.
Yeah. So it should be progressive, not avoidance, followed by an explosion. Like you said, you just avoid until you're resentful or furious, or you've heard so much about it or talked so much about it with other team members and not them, that you're sort of exploding to someone who never saw this coming.
Yeah, progression. That's a good way to say it. Accountability should move from clarity to coaching to consequences to action. What happens too often is avoidance, resentment, explosion. That's just bad leadership. Finally, step 5, follow through. The final step of follow through. If you say there's going to be a consequence, this gets back to you talking about parenting earlier, and nothing happens, you teach the person and the team that the standard is not real. Follow through might mean changing responsibilities. It might mean formal performance management. It might mean reassignment. It might mean deciding that this role is not the right fit. A conversation at that stage might sound like this. Hey, look, we've worked on this together. We clarified the expectation, put support in place, followed up several times, but the gap remains. We need to make a change. That's hard. That's the thing that people are afraid of doing, I think, when they're avoiding. But sometimes it's the right thing to do.
You really need organizational support for a lot of this. Like you've got to have the ability to do. Where does documentation fit into this? Because that can sound like you're building a case, but also you want to have very clear expectations.
Yeah, you're right. Documentation can sound like you're building a case against somebody, but it doesn't have to be punitive. Good documentation protects clarity. After a serious accountability conversation, write down what was discussed and share that with the person. My approach is we have the conversation, immediately write an email that contains, this was my perspective on our conversation. Here are the action items. Here are the, deadlines, et cetera, and you share that with them. You're documenting it, but you're documenting it in such a way that is designed to be helpful to that person. What was the standard that we clarified? What was the gap that we named? What support was offered? What did that person agree to? You said that you would do X. And when will you follow up? What happens if that gap persists? That protects both people from lying on memory later. And if the pattern continues, that documentation then helps show that the process was clear, fair, and progressive.